It's past the Vazul, baby.
Come on in. Come on in, no, this ain't no dream. When I love it, when I stay in style, from your head down to your house. Scream until you like it, never gonna stop. Scream until you like it, get ready to rock. Scream until you like it.
All right. Well, hello, Screamers. Welcome to the Scream Until You Like It podcast. I know a lot of you have been part of the Facebook group up till now. Here, I'm Clint Neelius today. That's a nod to the movie that we're going to talk about. Normally, I do the Amityville Horror Hangout and podcast. Evil Mike is with me today. He is, of course, the patron saint of Scream Until You Like It. He is the guy who started the page. So if you're following the page, you probably know who Mike is. And we decided we wanted to get together and do some classic films, at least to start off with. Maybe a few other things going down the road, like maybe talking about some haunted attractions and other cool things that we might like to go see. But for now, we're going to start with movies. And this is actually kind of going to be a journey for me. I don't know. There isn't a huge age gap between the two of us, Mike, but you're a little older than me, and you've had more exposure to some of these classic films than I did. I mean, I kind of go back to, I'd say the '70s is probably generally the limit of how far back I went. I know you went back a bit further than that to like '60s and '50s, and I'm just curious where your love for classic movies came from.
Well, like I had this conversation with my nephew yesterday, and I was explaining to him because he's 10 years old. And I said, when I was a kid, I was born in 72. So even when I watched this movie, which came out in 68, I was watching it on a rerun.
Uh-huh.
When I was a kid, there was no cable, no VCRs, no nothing. So Saturdays, when they put old movies on, Planet of the Apes, Godzilla movies, it was stuff that, and if you missed that Saturday movie, you probably weren't going to see that for another few months. Maybe you would catch it again. But if you weren't there, I said, when Planet of the Apes was on, my ass was there in front of that TV. It couldn't be anywhere else. There was no DVR in it. There was no.
Right.
And I also told him, I said, when I remember as a kid, like I said, you didn't have a choice. So, like, even if you didn't know what a movie was about, you didn't have much going on. So you put on whatever the Saturday movie was. And when Planet of the Apes came out, and I've told you many times, I was a chicken shit as a kid. I was scared. The apes scared me. But at the same time, I was like mesmerized. I was like, especially when they talked and they had rifles and I was like, it's like, I'd be scared shit. And I'll be honest, they did scare me, but I was like, this is also fucking badass. I was like, these apes are running around with rifles and treating humans like pets and stuff. I was like, this is great shit. And the rest is history. So, it's been one of my favorite franchises since I'm a kid.
Yeah. How old do you think you were when you saw it the first time?
I probably had to watch it maybe 77, 78. I had that's my earliest remembrance of it. Because I remember even after that, I had the toys. Yeah. I had everything. The apes, the Mego dolls, the horses. It was...
So you maybe like...
Planet of the Apes was like everything to me as a kid.
So you were like 6 or 7 years old and watching this, nobody were afraid of it. Jesus Christ.
No, but that's the thing. It was one of the few things that, like, there were movies I saw and it was like, fuck that, I'm never watching that again. But I mean, as scared as I was of the apes, I was like, they had cool toys and the treehouse set and everything. I was like, you can't not get involved in it. I was like,
no, that sounds awesome. I mean, my experience with classic films was a little less remarkable than that. Like we didn't go anywhere to see movies except on occasion. So and if we did, it was usually like heading out to one of our local drive-ins. I grew up in the Carlisle, Pennsylvania area, and we had a place up the road, I guess in the Silver Spring area. It's called the Silver Spring Drive-In. It's no longer there. That one's gone. But they'd show like 2 or 3 movies. Oh hell, I can't even remember what we went to see. It might have been at one point we might have seen E.T. there. Another time, I know we saw a
great one.
crocodile. Yeah, I know you love that one. I know we saw a Crocodile Dundee there. So that puts you in the time frame, because that thing was in the theater circuit for a long time before it actually went to video. So like they kept rerunning it like at the drive-ins, and we kept going back to see it, which was kind of strange. For some reason, that movie really resonated with my parents.
Mm-hmm. I saw that in the movie, but those are the type of movies I would go see with my parents.
Yeah.
My dad didn't like horror movies. He was a John Wayne guy, a Western guy, an army movie guy. He loved Elvis.
Oh, okay.
So he had so if I wanted to watch any of that crap, I had to watch it. Like my mom usually worked on Saturdays, and my dad was, so I was with my grandparents every weekend because they live right up the block. And so I look forward to whatever was thrown at me on the TV on whatever that Saturday movie was. That's what I was watching.
Yeah. No, I gotcha. Now we our most prized possession in our house was probably the VCR, when we got one of those like top loaders in like the mid 80s. I'm pretty sure it was probably a hand me down from like my grandparents, or we bought a refurbished one or something like that. There's no way we paid full price for one. There's no way. But it was one of those that had like the little remote, like if you're recording something, you could like
it just had a pause and stop.
Just a pause. That was it. Yeah.
And it had my first VCR had a wire too. It wasn't even a cordless remote.
Yeah.
It had
that's what this was. Yeah. And that was just pause. And that's all it did. And it was for when you're recording something off TV and you want to cut out your commercial breaks. So you hit your pause whenever it goes to commercial, and then flip it the other way to resume. Yeah. But I watched so many things on VHS. They would record hundreds of movies off of TV. My grandfather was probably, my grandfather had an HBO subscription for a long time, and he recorded everything he could record off HBO. We'd borrow his tapes because he'd like keep a list of all the movies that he had.
That's it. My dad, it was like a drug to him. It was like he was on a new drug. He was like, he even got to the point where, I mean, later on, he even figured out he could rent movies. He bought another VCR and would just record them. But there was a point where it was like, when it was a new thing to him, if he was working, there was like a movie he wanted to watch. He was like, this movie's coming on, tape it and take the commercials out. And I was like, what? I was like, are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, take the commercial. And what I would do is like, I would start, maybe get it like, and then I would put it on the commercial and pause it, and I would forget to put it back on. He'd go to play the movie, and like, he would have like 20 minutes of the movie, and like, that's.
Well, hey, it serves him right for robbing you of your night and giving you a job.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not sitting through this crap. I was like, this movie sucks. Stupid army movie you're making me watch.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, deal with the commercials.
Yeah. We did the same thing. We'd borrow VCR from somebody else, and we'd go rent stuff at the video store. So illegal, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
As soon as they start putting all the copyright protection on stuff, that ended. But I mean, there for a little while, it worked pretty good. But man, yeah, good times. I saw a lot of movies. That way. Yeah. But my dad was all over the place with the things that he liked. So we had stuff. I could have watched anything I wanted. I could have watched, black and white films, like early stuff. I could have watched Elvis. I could have watched, things like this. But the stuff we watched together was generally, action films and like Westerns and things like that.
And also, if you bought a videotape back in the day, like if you bought a movie, some movies were like $70.
Yeah.
Like like when they first came out, if you bought a movie, I remember we used to go to Crazy Eddie.
Yeah.
And that's when my dad was like, I ain't paying, $60, $70 for a movie. We'll just record it from somewhere. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it was
Yeah.
like crazy.
That's how I saw a lot of TV cuts,
Yeah.
So anyhow, well, we may as well kind of, I guess, jump into the movie a little bit. Of course, we're talking about Planet of the Apes from 1968, starring Charlton Heston, and Roddy McDowall, and a few others. Let's see, like Kim Hunter, can't forget her, and of course Maurice Evans. Those are the four main characters that you follow throughout the
Yes.
the course of the movie. So, I mean, there's many other people in it, many other notable actors, many talented people came together to
Sure.
do this. This was something that was kind of like unheard of at the time. I know you got a few things prepared there. You want to like go through just some general stats of the movie or something like that?
Yeah. Where the budget for this movie was
Mhm.
budget was $5.8 million.
Really? In 68?
In 68,
Wow.
and it grossed $33.3 million.
Get out.
And I just read recently that if you, with the money conversion to what the dollar value is today, that's still a record holder from what
From
it
like a
made.
profit standpoint.
Yes, from
Okay.
a profit standpoint. Back then that was a record holder, but they said even if you convert the money to today's dollar value, it would still be a record holder.
Yeah. And that's not to mention all the merchandising, because like I'm sure the studio retained the rights for the merchandising for a long time. And you said yourself you had action figures and stuff like that from Planet of the Apes. So imagine all the money they made on that.
It's not on screen, but I'm wearing I dress for the occasion.
I see it. That's cool. I started watching that documentary that's on the box set of the movies, and that's the making of the Planet of the Apes. And I do recall in the opening of that they were recording what was it, the Malibu State Park or something like that, which used to be land that was owned by 20th Century Fox, and that's kind of where they used for a location to record a lot of these scenes. Some of it was probably studio stuff, where yeah, but like a lot of the outdoor shots, they kind of did it in that large piece of land that they owned at the studio. And that was really cool because I was interested. I was like, where the fuck you find a location like this? And I keep forgetting, like out west, they just got some weird looking shit out there,
They do.
all sorts of different terrain. And that's kind of what this was. It gave you the feeling of having like being kind of chaotic. Like, you had ocean, you had canyon, you had desert. You know what I mean? You had just about anything that you could think of, greenery, jungle almost. More forest, not really jungle, but I mean, it all kind of, there was just so many variations in the landscape of this movie that I was like, holy crap. Did they film this multiple places, or was it
Definitely? Actually, right here. They filmed in California, Utah, Arizona, with sequences shot in Lake Powell, Glen Canyon National Recreation. So I mean, they were all over the place with this thing.
Okay. So this was a legit production. They got multiple locations to get all the different kinds of shots they want, because they wanted you to feel like you were on another planet.
Yes.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. I'd have to say I didn't see this movie until I was in my early 20s.
Okay.
I knew of it for a long time, and I never really watched it. And of course, it wasn't something that I watched with my dad, because we, I think he liked Chuck Heston, but he didn't, he wasn't like a super fan of his work. So it's not like we had him laying around everywhere and he's like, let's watch Planet of the Apes. That never happened. I can't even think of a movie that we watched together when I was growing up that had him in it. But he was probably the big name of this movie, and he was, I think, pivotal in getting it made.
Oh,
Um,
big time.
yeah, because he was pretty powerful at that time in Hollywood. I mean, he'd done a bunch of stuff before, like the Ten Commandments and Ben
Yeah.
Hur, and
Well, that's what he's known for in my household. I mean, I grew up in an
okay.
Italian household, so you got to go with Moses. you know?
Yeah, this is kind of like he really veered off the path of his career here to do something like
Yeah,
this. I mean, sci-fi wasn't really something that he was really known for at the time. And then he seemed to just continue in that direction, didn't he?
yeah. And
Because
then he did the Omega Man, and
yeah,
you know,
Soylent Green and
yeah, Soylent Green. He
yeah.
out of the three ending, they were like a couple of endings they were gonna go with,
Uh-huh.
and the ending they went with was Charlton Heston's decision. They went with that because that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah, yeah. And
So,
I don't know what the other two endings were, but I mean, the one that they picked was probably the most impactful.
oh,
I
big
mean,
time.
yeah. Did they ever describe in any of the documentary information what the alternate endings were?
No, and I've actually looked. It doesn't.
It's a secret. They'll
Yeah,
never
if
let it out.
Charlton Heston said, "Bury those. We don't want to hear about them. This is the
Yeah.
ending we're going with."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Moses has spoken. So, yeah, I don't know if we want to jump into where this movie opened up, but I mean, Charlton Heston for some reason is by himself in the cockpit of this space shuttle that they're in. I don't know how long they've been on it at this point. I don't know if he woke up, just to like have a conversation with himself to record it on the onboard
Yeah.
recording system. You know what I mean? And you catch a date on the clock. It's basically 3/26 of 2673. And like I said, I don't know if he was asleep before that. He probably was. And
It said,
woke
yeah,
up.
ship time was 7/14/1972. That was the actual time they were in.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
they were going to they planned on going to Earth time 3/23/2673.
Oh. Well, I guess I wrote that down wrong.
They
Oops.
they ended up in Earth time 11/25/39/78.
Yeah. That
So they
that I wrote
overshot
down.
their point by by 1,000 years.
Okay. Okay.
The only
So
reason I
maybe
got that is because I paused the screen
yeah,
on the spaceship. Or else
right.
I would have never
And
caught that.
I was trying to do that too because I thought it was important to get those numbers right, but they got a little muddy with the math and the calculations
Yeah.
as they went by. So the theory was that they were in a ship that was traveling, like on a 6-month voyage. It was going to be doing like speed of light for like 6 months, something like that. And I don't know if they were going to like touch down on another planet. I'm not really clear on what the idea was. I think that's what it was. They were going to another inhabitable planet. But supposedly in this time, about 700 years was going to pass on Earth because
And they're
although
supposedly
very
supposed
little,
to repopulate
yeah,
because they even
yeah,
said the chick that died Stewart there were three guys and one girl. He said, well, Stewart was supposed to be the new Eve.
yeah, yeah. I remember that he pops out on him later when they're having a conversation. Well, he's having a conversation, but
Yeah.
um, yeah. So I wasn't quite clear. I was pretty sure they were going to another planet, and that was kind of the idea. They were going to repopulate a new planet and basically save the human species because they had screwed up Earth so bad.
Hmm.
But so I got to nitpick something here. It's like he's having this conversation and recording it, and he's got a couple of questions for the future generations that might hear his words, even though he'll never get the answer, you know and he's sitting there smoking a freaking cigar, and I'm like, isn't NASA like the one place, that designs things to like never catch on fire in space? It's like they would never want to fire inside of like a spaceship. And I'm like, there's no way that they would have been okay
Right?
with him taking cigars with him and smoking in the middle of the cockpit
And he even
of
put
the
it down like right
spaceship.
on the counter.
He put it on the console. I mean, what was
Yeah,
he?
he's just like,
I was like, holy crap.
well, that's what he's figuring. He's like, everything's fireproof. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's probably what it is, you know. So and he quits doing that. And then he takes this syringe and he shoots himself up, and then he goes and he gets in his bed to go to sleep. I don't know what the hell he shot himself up with. I don't know if it was like a tranquilizer to go to sleep,
Yeah.
or oh hell, I don't know. It could have been, vitamins, could have been morphine. I don't know. They never tell you. It's just like he just shoots up and and he goes and
Yeah,
he gets in
really.
his bed.
And
Yeah.
why did they have to sleep like they were getting in a coffin? Like they were all like, couldn't you just like sprawl out? I mean, you're going to sleep.
Yeah.
Is there protocol that you have to like look like?
Well, I mean, the weird thing is they had gravity inside this spaceship. So I mean, at the very
so he was
least,
strapped down. I mean, so let your arms flap around.
yeah, nothing was floating. I didn't see anything floating. But I don't know. It kind of looked like the indent in his mattress was like shaped to his body.
Yeah.
So maybe that was to keep him from moving around while he's in this hyper sleep chamber or something like that. With
it was like the original memory
pattern.
phone.
Basically, the next cut is them waking up while their ship is like on a course that's heading straight for water. I mean, they're basically going to crash land. They have no idea what's going on. They're completely disoriented. Somehow they survive the crash. And they start like checking to see how each other's doing. So far water hasn't come into the inside of their ship yet. And they're checking on each other. Next thing they're like, they want to check on Stuart, and they find out, shit, there's a big crack in the side of her sleep pod, and she looks like she's mummified.
Like the fucking Crypt Keeper.
Yeah.
Basically.
Exactly. She looked terrible. And I think later on that, Charlton Heston's character surmised that she'd probably been dead about a year.
Yeah, he didn't get too choked up about it.
No, he really didn't. He seemed to take everything like super well. I mean,
yeah,
like I don't know, like a cowboy or something. Like nothing.
The other guy was making a little memorial for her.
Yeah,
he made a little thing with him, and he was like laughing at him. He was like,
yeah. Well, are you talking about the flag planting scene?
Yeah.
Because I didn't know if that was for her or if that was kind of like, when they landed on the moon, they planted an American flag. You know what I mean? Kind of like claiming the land for America. Because at that time there was a space race going on, and we were basically just showing, hey, we were here first.
Yeah, it could be that.
Yeah,
you're probably right. It's probably that. I figured maybe it was for.
Yeah,
he planted like a little fake grave or something to.
Yeah.
But either way, Charlton Heston was a douche and fucking laughed at him. Regardless.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a little bit. He'd had like a big belly laugh over that. He's like, he's like, fucking idiot, so yeah. Best of their technology, they got an inflatable raft, man, and they throw some backpacks in there and they take off down like the canyons. So this must have been some of that canyon scenery you were talking about, one of the other locations that they filmed. They end up on a rocky shore and they have a conversation about what kind of supplies they got, and evidently they only got about 3 days worth of food, and some test equipment and stuff like that. I'm like, what kind of fucking survival packs only give you 3 days worth of food, man? I mean, you should have like at least a week.
A week.
That's kind of my opinion on that. I'm like, these things suck. I'm like,
the guy Dodge took out a Geiger counter.
Yeah.
Made sure no radiation, and they were like,
and that was kind of the thing. Another point I was going to bring up, with these guys, it's like they seemed like unlikely astronauts. You know what I mean? Like they were shit talkers. They were just being dicks to one another. Like Charlton
Yeah.
Heston specifically, Taylor was being a dick to Landon. You know what I mean?
Oh, big
And just
time.
trying to get a rise out of him. Dodge barely said anything at all. He was the only one that I actually believed, maybe could have been an astronaut, because like
Yeah.
he was the scientific type. He was taking samples and he was testing stuff, making sure it was safe and there was no radiation, things like that. These guys are just like, one's planting a flag and the other one's just, just
Laughing at him.
poking the bear
Yeah.
the whole time, trying to get a rise out of him. Like, Jesus
Yeah.
Christ. It's like, you guys have never made it through NASA.
Really?
but it's a Hollywood production, so we'll let that go. So they made a point to say that, or Landon made a point to say that Taylor didn't get a chance to check the tapes, so he didn't really know where they were.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about it, and he's like, some planet near the constellation Orion. Is that close enough for you?
He was so nonchalant about it. Like, dude, you don't know where the hell in time you are. He didn't care. He was like, well.
I think he's just making it up,
Yeah.
just to be more of a dick. It's like, be like, oh, somewhere near the belt of Orion. I mean, where else would we be?
Where
close
else
enough
would we
for
be?
you? Yeah. And he's like, you never got a chance to check the tapes. That all happened too fast. You don't know where we are,
Yeah.
And they kind of come to the conclusion, well, does it really matter? And they feel like they've been probably, they're doing shitty math. Well, we've got these big beards. You're going gray now. So as long as we've been going, and I caught the clock on there. He's like, I've probably been out here 2,000 years. Something like that. I'm like, holy shit. It's like, so now we're just really confused because we don't really know how much time they were in there. So they start off on their little trek there, and really they're just looking for life. So
any
plants,
kind of life.
water, things like that. And I find it interesting that they kind of crossed the desert, and the very first plant that they found, they just ripped it out of the ground.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, look, life. Let's kill it.
Let's just rip it out.
Yeah. I mean, they couldn't even eat it. They were just like, oh, this is evidence that we're getting close. Maybe we can find some way to get around. And
then they find the funky scarecrows.
Yeah, the scarecrows. And I'm thinking at this point, it's like, all right, shouldn't they be getting a clue that maybe something hostile is ahead?
It's, I mean, common sense. Scarecrow
Yeah.
in general, any way, shape, or form, is to warn something off. So, like,
Yeah.
what are these people warning off? Like,
Yeah.
so proceed with a little caution. They didn't even oh.
Yeah, he makes some comment of these scarecrows, I have no idea what he was even saying about them, but but they did go in a little further. They ignored all the danger. They completely were oblivious to the fact that they were being followed. They had what looked like humans on the rocks, above them, and it's like, you think they'd be looking around. I mean, they were oblivious to that. They noticed nothing, and the weird thing was, even when they stopped, like, they didn't even do things that made sense. Like, they didn't even sit in the shade. They sat out in the dead sun,
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. So I don't know. I expect more out of movies now, I guess, because like I want my characters to make decisions that make sense. But this was, this was probably, like, oh, well, we got better light if you sit in the sun. So sit right there. Here's your mark. Sit there. We're going to record you. So that's just a guess. But they find, I guess, they hear a waterfall. Find that.
Yes.
Drop down to it. Find.
When they saw the water, then it was like, fuck the scarecrows. Fuck everything. That's,
Yeah, they're like, we're 12 years old again. They're like,
let's all get naked and
go skinny dipping in this lagoon.
And another rule number one: when you're jumping, well, if you're gonna skinny dip, you keep your clothes nearby. You never free because your clothes always get stolen by somebody or something.
Yeah. I just don't know why they felt such safety, to be
Yeah,
able to leave all their stuff unattended. Of course, it all gets taken. They go scrambling out of the water, trying to, follow whoever took their stuff.
and
Then
then
they
like when
find it's
they all stand together, like the biggest sausage party that planet has ever seen. It's like, dude, you got to stay. The ball naked. I was like, couldn't you give each other like a foot? I mean, like they were like right up there.
Yeah,
They were like, oh,
exactly.
good.
Yeah, they clustered together, they touched tips, they knelt
I
down.
was like, dude, give
Look
me
at
a.
the, footprints in the
I was
sand.
like, back up a few inches, bro.
Ah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but no, they made it weird, and then they ran off after their stuff. Yeah, I liked how they found their, their broken test equipment, and Taylor picks up, like, whatever the hell that was, and he just dumped it. Like, all the
He's
shit
like,
fell out of it. He's like, "Oh, well, this is broken. Dump." You
yeah,
know? And, they pulled together enough, like, cloth that they could at least, cover themselves a little bit, and they just started following the humans. So, which was probably a smart idea. Now that I think of it, because if there's other creatures around like you and you follow them, well, they're going to lead you to important things that you need, like food, water.
hmm
I don't think that, they initially had any real plans to communicate with them. They just wanted to see what they were and where they were going. Um, and that was probably the smartest decision I saw them make up to this point was following the humans.
yeah, really.
And they made it to a field, ended up eating some fruit that they were tossing down off of trees. They're like, oh man, this is awesome. And Taylor makes the biggest leap in assumptions because they hadn't even attempted to communicate with one yet. I think they're
He-
mute.
yeah,
And I'm like,
he was,
how can he
he was,
tell? You haven't even tried to talk to him yet.
yeah. And he's like, doesn't matter. Pretty soon we're going to be running this place.
That's right. That's right. He's like, if this is the best they got, we'll be running this planet inside
Then
6
the,
months.
then the girls came. They're like, the fuck you are.
Yeah. And I'd have to say that field scene where the apes finally showed up was probably one of the coolest scenes of the whole movie.
I said, you know what it reminds me of? Which I bet
Yeah.
you they kind of got the idea from the Jurassic Park with the velociraptors. You see the cornfields and you
Oh,
saw the apes going through this. Just you didn't see them at first. You just saw the sticks moving through, and
yeah,
you could see
yeah.
the people running through, and the apes are coming from the side. Very much like the raptors.
That's very possible. I mean, that could have been an inspirational scene, for Spielberg or whoever's idea it was to do the Velociraptor scene like that.
Right?
I
I
mean,
think so.
yeah, that's pretty neat. you know. And these militant apes coming through were pretty cool looking. They were all wearing like leather jackets and
That reveal, even as a kid, when I was like I said before, I even knew they could speak, but I was like, that
Mhm.
was like coming out with the guns and like I said, in the leather outfits and I
Yeah,
was like, what the hell's going on here? I was like, I was like, because you waited a half hour to see these apes.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, they
Basically,
kept. I was like, so when am I gonna? I was like, well, but when they say me, they pan in and they expand on the, and he's on the horse.
hmm
I mean, as a kid, that was really impactful. I was like,
yeah,
holy crap!
yeah. Then they started, you know, they just started shooting at him.
Shooting
Like,
at him.
I thought, oh shit, they're just here to like thin the herd or something. They're just gunning people down. Dodge takes a hit.
Oh
Um,
yeah, he's
Ta- Taylor finds him laying. It's like and that kind of sucked. Dodge was, pretty cool, pretty serious up to that point. He barely said a word since
yeah.
the ship. And suddenly he's dead. And um, I guess you watch Landon. Do you get to see Landon get grabbed? I don't remember.
He gets clubbed with a rifle and he falls off the
Oh,
cliff
off the
into the
little
water.
cliff thing. Yeah.
And
And
that's
then
another thing. Then they were in the water and they were just clubbing people with the rifles. It was like getting
yeah.
violent.
Yeah, they were springing up nets, and they were like riding up behind people on horses and like getting them in nets, scooping them up, dragging them across the ground. I mean, this was some serious business here. They were, killing a few, corralling a few others,
Yeah. And
and
even when
rounding
they
them up,
got back to camp, like, and they showed you they were the live ones they were putting in, but they had like the ones that were dead just hung up,
strung
like,
upside down. Yeah,
you know,
on that pole. Yeah,
like wild game. They just like,
yeah. Which made you wonder what they were going to do with them, because it's like, they weren't like gutted or anything like that. They were just hanging up.
yeah.
Um, but it's like, are they going back for research? It's like you didn't know what to think at this point. Like, for all we know, they could have been a food source. You know what I mean? For the apes. Um,
You never
but
know.
yeah, but Taylor took a bullet in the throat or in the side of his neck. Obviously not life threatening because he woke up, with his neck bandaged in a bit. But yeah, that was one of the coolest things that I can point out of the whole movie was just that sequence right there where they encounter the apes for the first time. The apes speak English. I feel like that's a very important plot point here. And I don't know why. I don't know. Why wasn't that questioned immediately? Like,
They could have spoke French. I mean, the guy that wrote the original book was French.
that's true. But it's like, I feel like there was clues, that never got explored. And I guess maybe it's just, we're making movies in the 60s. This is science fiction. We don't have a way to,
Mhm.
relay that we're speaking different languages at this point. It's not like they're going to speak something. We're going to put subtitles up on the screen. So the people would probably get very bored with that at the time this
Oh
movie was
yeah.
made. I'm assuming. I mean, but we
Nobody
do it
wants
all
to
the
see a
time now.
gorilla. Nobody
Yeah.
wants to see a gorilla say "wee wee." You know.
Yeah. 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 Como tu tapel, yeah, but I feel like if this were real circumstances, like we would immediately question why these apes are speaking American English. You know what I mean? Because it's exactly what it sounds like. But I guess we just have to accept that for Hollywood purposes and move past that and still believe we're on another planet, right?
Yeah.
Um, so he meets Zira, the ape scientist who's studying people, and I guess that she does. She's mostly interested in the behaviors of the humans, although she is somehow connected to some of the experimental brain surgeries because they have that
Hmm.
discussion inside the room where uh where they're just keeping them captive.
Yeah.
Um and I don't understand, why Taylor's character didn't try to do more charades because he knew he couldn't speak. And the only motion I saw him do was, other than like, widen his eyes, was
Hmm.
this. Wants her to come forward, you know, and like a buffoon, he reaches out and tries to grab,
Yeah. Like, where's
the
that gonna
notebook
get you?
she's holding, he's just gonna snatch it, and he gets himself, like smacked in the gut with this stick, shoved back
That's it.
against the wall.
Enter Julius, my favorite. He was probably my favorite person in the movie. My favorite ape
Okay.
because he was just a
Yeah, yeah,
clown.
yeah, yeah, yeah. How would you describe Julius? Is he kind of like a jailer? You know?
Like a jailer, probably not good enough to be regular security, but they're like, you're a douche. You just sit there and friggin' watch the animals, and you could hose them down every now and like he walks around with a
Okay.
cigar and like what
Uh,
what an ass.
yeah, that's right. That's right. And and they have all these assumptions about the humans, which of course is the reverse. That was one of the things I liked about this was they often reverse the roles between humans and apes in this movie.
Hmm.
He's like, oh, he's still pretending like he can talk, but you know what they
He's like,
say, human see, human do.
human do, yeah. And Dr. Zayas, obviously, he's very good at mimicry because he's just trying to act like an ape.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I didn't understand why he didn't, he was like this. He's like,
Yeah,
like mimic writing. Can I have a piece of paper and a pencil? I mean, something like that.
yeah.
It's like you'd think, like, not to be gross or anything, but you'd think he could have found something to like write on the wall with. I'm not saying stick his finger in his poop or anything like that, but I mean, he could have
I
found
would.
something to write on the wall. You know what I mean?
I'd
Anything.
put a big frigging crap message on the wall. Frigging,
Yeah, exactly. But he could have done several things, and he didn't, and that's just a limitation of the script. They didn't have him
yeah,
explore anything real. I mean, they took him to the outdoor thing, I guess, like kind of like out in the yard but still in cages, and he tries to draw in the sand whenever the doctor comes up. And then of course this girlfriend that they gave him, you
well,
know
but she was smart because I think she knew, as primitive as she knew if he was trying to communicate with them, they were going to
Mhm.
scoop his brain out like they did with everybody else.
Oh, I hadn't considered that. I thought that she was just like, she's like, oh, we're playing in the sand. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And just like started
that's
messing with it. And he grabs her and drags her away from it. And the other dude wants to kick his ass in there because he's like, hey, what are you doing?
yeah,
Um, and I feel one of the things I would have liked an answer to in this that we didn't really get an answer to, or maybe we did and I just missed it, was why these humans were mute.
yeah. They never.
Did they ever give an answer to that?
No, it's like almost like if they were like cavemen.
Yeah. It's like, well, that could be. I mean, it may be that there were so few that survived, that they kind of lost their language.
Yeah,
A few generations pass, and but they literally made no sounds whatsoever. They didn't make moans,
they didn't
groans,
grunt or nothing.
coughs, nothing. I didn't hear a thing. They were just completely mute, like the vocal cords didn't work.
Yeah,
Um, so that's always been a question in my mind why that was. And I feel like I didn't get a clear answer for that.
and this
Um,
you get the first time that Dr. Zayas is a dick because
yeah,
he knew whatever he wrote, he saw he could write, and he's like he covered it up right away.
yeah, yeah. Dr.
And then
Zayas tried really hard
with
not to
that
show his card.
with the gorilla, and he's like, and the gorilla's like, what's Zero trying to prove? And he's like, that humans can be tame. And he's like, like they like, oh, it cracks up.
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely messages in this movie,
Oh,
and
big time
even
corruption.
surprising. Oh yeah.
Shows you even among the apes there was corruption and bullshit like
Mhm.
that. And
Yeah. It was they changed the narrative, like to apes, but it was basically all the same things that people have done, you
oh,
know,
definitely,
like trying to control people with religion, like their sacred scrolls, their ancient scrolls that they had that they were quoting all the time, like it was, some type of um, like Bible or something like that.
yeah.
Like some ancient scripts that will with all those life lessons and parables that there are, like they had
The lawgiver,
a
he
bunch of
made the apes and gave them
yeah
souls.
yeah and be careful about having humans around, he'll ruin his own property and yours, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
he'll kill his
um
brother to take his brother's land.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
like,
Yeah. So it was clear they knew things,
mhm.
based on these scrolls. And it was clear that Dr. Zayas knew more than what he was saying. Um, and I think that it was this was very like politically charged. This was very like religious charged,
Mm-hmm.
um, and this was about um, control, like
Yes.
might and control of a species, but not just controlling the humans, which they treated like livestock, but control of the other apes themselves in order to have a peaceful society. So this was like just like a condensed, you know, um, scope of what we've been doing forever as
Like,
humans.
like the politicians, the orangutans didn't want it. They didn't want the scientists finding too much out or discovering too much. They wanted,
Right.
like I said, because they felt like the more they found out about these humans, the less control they would have.
Hmm. And I think that's why, like in the scenes coming up, is when they started having discussions about, heresy,
Mm-hmm.
scientific heresy, where like if you discover too much and you challenge our teachings and our laws, like you are rebelling against our government.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if you
Um,
could prove it or not, but you're
right,
rebelling against what we told you.
right. So that's when I was like, man, this is a very intricate story.
It is.
Like I was entertained up to this point, until I got here and I was like, oh shit. I'm like, they're really, creating a message here, and and people in power will take great pains to suppress something that will upset the balance. And I think that that's very clearly, and effectively what they were doing with this story. Um and so things are getting real for Dr. Zaius. He's getting upset about it.
Yeah.
He's realizing, with the talking that Zira and Cornelius are doing, and communicating with Taylor, via written message because his throat's still fucked up. That this is going to put them on the wrong course. This is going to
Mm-hmm.
upset the balance and he has to suppress it as quickly as he can. So like they show him the paper airplane, that he made and said, oh, it floats on the air, and he's like kind of like
Impossible.
he's like
The flight is
bullshit.
impossible.
Yeah, crushes it up, throws it away,
Like,
and they immediately um um he starts taking steps to take Taylor, and do things with him.
mhm.
So he finds out what the hell did they say they're gonna, oh, he was gonna be gelded. That's what it was,
Yeah.
and I'm sure most people know what gelding is, but I always think of it in reference to horses, or other animals like that. And basically, you're castrating it.
Yeah.
You're taking a male horse and taking away its ability to reproduce. So first thing they wanted to do was stop that.
And
They want
meanwhile,
to risk having any more of his kind.
yeah. And meanwhile, they were promoting that first because actually,
Mhm.
my 10-year-old nephew even asked a little earlier when she brings Nova and they put her in the cage. She goes, "Oh, Bright Eyes, we brought you a present." My nephew's like, "Why are they putting her in the cage with him?" I was like, he was lonely. I was like, "What am
Yeah.
So, and this blew me away. I'll give you a great trivia fact about Linda Harrison.
Uh-huh.
Okay, as you know, uh, Richard Zanuck was the producer for this, who did Jaws.
Okay.
Zanuck and David Brown did Jaws. When
Okay.
this movie was being filmed, Linda Harrison was his mistress. He was married.
Oh.
After this was filmed, he divorced his wife and married Linda Harrison. They were together for years. When Jaws
Oh,
came
my.
out, Zanuck, and I have the guy's name here, Richard Zanuck, had all plans for Linda Harrison to be Ellen Brody, the chief's wife. But I guess the president of the studio, Sid Sheinberg, was married to Elaine Gary. And he was like, he shot him down. He was like, no, my wife's going to be in it. So I said that. I mean, and you know how much I love Jaws. I think
Yeah.
I would have liked Linda Harrison better in the movie than Elaine Garrett. That's just me.
Yeah. Wow. It's funny how much decisions are influenced by
Oh yeah, it's
by your moves behind the scenes. You
yeah,
know.
it's. I was like, wow. I was like, that's just. He was like, nope, my wife's gonna be in, not yours.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah.
So
You can just find another one. So
okay.
so yeah, he Taylor gets upset. He overhears this, realizes he's gonna be gelded. And they go to take him out of the cage. Of course, he fights back, manages to slip out. He goes running around. He doesn't know which direction to go. He keeps running into apes everywhere he goes.
They
He
start
ends up
throwing fruit at him.
yeah, he slips into what looks like a church. I mean, there's a sermon happening there, and he's just in there kind of like skulking his way through, trying to avoid, the militant apes that are following him. Some little kid rats him out. He shoves the kid and he takes off running, goes outside again. They start throwing shit at him at the market, in come the horses, they're whipping at him,
And
with
he
the
runs through the museum, and he says they have
yeah,
like a museum of humans,
yeah,
and then he runs past one, and it's Dodge,
yeah,
and he's like
yeah.
all stuffed and
That must have been super upsetting. Another one of those compelling moments in this movie. Like and it doesn't give you a clear idea about how much time has passed. You think it's just a couple of days. You know what I mean? But it's
yeah.
probably been a little longer than that. It's probably been a
Oh
couple of
yeah,
weeks. That he's been in this captivity because he's been, healing up. He still can't talk, and it's taken him some time to gain the trust of his captors to try to communicate via, writing, you know. So I guess they had time to stuff him and put him in the museum. It's just absolutely creepy to see him standing there with his, blind ass looking eyes. You know what I mean? Uh,
yeah, yeah. That was
um,
yeah. He was
yeah. So they take a shot at him. Dodge damn near gets shot again, and he takes off out of there. And he ends up having some hand to hand, altercations outside, where he's just trying to slip being taken away again. And damn if those slick apes don't just throw a net down off of like an upper area and get him, and then they just jump right off the back of
that
that
was cool. And they all
archway.
just jumped down
Yeah,
and
yeah, there's like 3 or 4 of them, and he just goes straight up into the air and he's suspended in this net. So that was a pretty cool looking scene,
oh yeah.
you
And we
know.
get probably one of the best lines in movie history.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Get your
Charlton Heston
stinking
comes
paws
in.
off me, you damn dirty ape.
Yeah. One of the most memorable lines,
Oh,
This
big
was
time.
like this was, overacting paradise for Charlton Heston here, you know what I mean? He had several of those lines in this movie,
Yeah,
you
and he
know.
ad libbed that. I
Did
read
he?
somewhere it was very simplified. It was supposed to be just like "Get away from me, you smelly ape" or
Yeah.
something like that. And
Yeah.
he put
He
that
goes,
extra flair on it.
yeah.
My nephew loved that part too. He was like, I said that there's no way anybody could watch that movie and not get floored by that scene.
Yeah.
Even all the apes' faces, they're like, "Ooh, oh,"
Yeah.
they're like,
Yep. And that seemed to change everything. Um they no longer had any thoughts at that point of taking him to be gelded. They just throw him back in the cage, take his, hit him with the fire hose, then take his girlfriend.
I wrote that there.
So
Yeah, Julius
yeah.
is still being a dick. He's like "Arr," with the hose, and he's like dancing while he's.
You know, Taylor's, uttering some bullshit. I can't understand what he's saying, but they pull her out, and they stop the hose for a second, and he tries to rush forward again. He hits him with the hose again, and that's where he's like, "It's a
The mud
madhouse,
house.
a madhouse." That's what I mean. Like overacting heaven
Yeah, like
for
where
Charlton Heston. No wonder he wanted to do this. He could be as, like over the top as he wanted.
I was like, look how smelly you are. I would think you would welcome the bath. I'd be like fucking
Yeah. Right. You think so. But he was just pissed that his escape attempt didn't work and he was still in trouble, and he just I think he hated that jailer, Julius or whatever his name was. But things calm down and he has that little conversation, with himself, but directed at Nova, where he does a little bit of an exposition of the original space mission.
Yeah.
This is where you learn that Stewart was supposed to be the new Eve. This in turn raised a new question for me. It's like, okay, you got 4 people. Only one of them's a chick. All right. You're not going to have very diverse genetics. And within just a couple of generations, there's going to be inbreeding.
Oh, yeah.
I really feel like this wasn't thought out very well. I mean, it's kind of going to be like, Amish culture or something like that. You know what I mean?
It'd be like Wrong Turn.
Yeah. You don't have enough people. Right.
Yeah.
You don't have enough people to diversify the gene pool. You know what I mean? And ultimately you're going to have all these birth defects, and yeah, it didn't work. I mean, it was a cool idea. I'm sure it looked great on paper, but
But
now today
not
thinking
well
about it,
thought out.
I'm like, there's no way this would have worked. No way. They needed another idea to keep the genetics diverse. Even if it was something silly, like they were gonna do it in a lab and they brought all these, samples with them that are in cryogenic stasis or something, you know what I mean? To
Maybe,
keep the gene pool diverse, you know what I mean? But it just wasn't that complicated of a script, so we have to accept it at face value. Yeah, this would have worked, 4 people, repopulating
it was the
a
60s.
planet.
Everybody was high. Nobody cared, They're like, we don't have to be that accurate. They'll buy it.
Yeah. So they take him out of there again, and they have kind of like a tribunal. It seems. You know what I mean? Like a trial, or a hearing. And
Which is bullshit too, because they won't even let him speak. It's basically just the orangutans just saying what they want. And the president is James Whitmore.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
him,
Yeah.
he was from The Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption.
Yes. I remember him from Shawshank. He was the guy who fed the crow.
Yeah.
He played Brooks. That's what it was. Yeah.
And every time
That's cool.
Charlton Heston wanted to speak, and he was just like, "Stop! Silence him!" He was, what kind of hearing is this?
Yeah. And it's like when the discussion got a little bit too heated, and Cornelius was just slinging a few too many scientific, facts at him, stuff that they didn't want to accept. I'm sure you caught it. I mean, they made it plain as day that they did they had the 3 orangutans, do this shit.
Yeah.
One of them did that. One of them kind of covered his eyes a little bit. The other one cupped his hands over his mouth. I'm like, really? We're gonna do the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil with the freaking apes. So that was kind of cool, but they were a little obvious about it. But yeah, they were trying them basically for scientific heresy. They had no care in the world over Taylor, because being a human, he had no rights under ape law. So he was just there because he was part of the problem, or part of what sparked the issue with these 2 scientists. So I feel like I'm reading that right. But they did want to explore his story a little bit about landing with other people, because they did establish that he accurately described the Forbidden Zone, which is where they came from after they crashed. That trek through the desert was all the Forbidden Zone. That's where apes aren't allowed to go. That's why the scarecrows were up. That's basically the boundary. You know, nothing comes in, nothing goes out. You know, Cornelius was doing like archaeological digs in that area with permission from their government.
Yeah.
So, but he's like, he accurately described it. He was there because I've seen it, you know, and so they're like, okay. He says there was other people with him, you know, let's bring the other humans that were collected at the same time we got him, see if he recognizes any of them. They did that. He sees Landon in the group, and he walks up to him just to turn him to the side to see his head shaved over here with a big freaking U-shaped scar on his head.
And Zaius knew that too. That's why he's like, let's go find him.
Yeah.
Because he knew he knew what they did to him.
So even though you didn't see it, you have to assume that Landon was speaking and trying to communicate with the apes.
Yes.
And Zaius immediately squashed that shit and had him lobotomized. And that was a crazy realization for Taylor's character. You know what I mean? Another zinger. You know what I mean? See Dodge dead in the museum. Now you see Landon with his lobotomy scar on the side of his head. You know,
realizing there's less and less hope as you
exactly that he's now the last one, you know, from that expedition. Then he gets mad at Zaius, tries to attack him, and then of course he's subdued and, you know, taken back. And so he does end up having a private conversation with Dr. Zaius. And Dr. Zaius kind of just explains to him, you know, the way things are, you know, and that they're going to be tried for heresy. They're probably going to go to jail for a couple of years, but they'll be fine. You, on the other hand, you know, we're going to emasculate you.
Yeah, really.
and basically do an experiment on your brain. So he's like, I'm going to be just like Landon. And this is all an effort to keep the truth hidden. You know, the truth that, you know, we basically haven't seen yet, you know, and they keep referring to, you know, the scientists, Cornelius and Zira, kind of keep referring to Taylor, you know, the fact that he can speak, as the missing link, you know, between humans and apes, because they have this evolutionary theory that apes evolved from humans, you know, which is complete, you know, backwards scenario, you know, to what
like
a few
what
of
we
us
have now.
believe
People
in this kind, you know, this world. Yeah.
You know, believe in the evolution of man. Some people believe in Adam and Eve. There's
yeah, exactly. But of course, you know, Cornelius and Zero, they're just like, no, we're kind of going to jail anyway. You know, we know that the odds are against us right now. They cook up this scheme to spring Taylor from his captivity. And
that scene is great. Because Julius finally gets what he deserves the whole friggin' movie. And it's by Lucius, the young kid.
Yeah.
We're taking them to the zoo.
Yeah, it's
this
pretty
order
good.
ain't even signed by Dr. Zaius. And he just clubs
That's right.
him.
Yeah, he shoves him back against the cage.
He has the cigar in his mouth, and Taylor holds him, and he knocks him out. And when he sinks down and he's on the floor, the cigar is still out in his mouth. It like didn't even fall out. So they must have like the effects department must have like glued it there so we could.
Yeah, or maybe it was just stuck to the rubber lips or latex, whatever.
Oh, it was hysterical.
We didn't really talk about the makeup in this. Did you want to say anything about that?
I mean,
because for the time it was pretty impressive looking.
The makeup,
I mean,
and even from the documentary, a lot of today's effects, it was groundbreaking.
Yeah,
I mean, it was nothing you saw in '68. They look great. They look like apes.
Yeah.
They didn't look like phony apes. Everything looked like monkeys and orangutan. Yeah. Like the features were. And I think I told you when we spoke the other day, it's like the guy, John Chambers, he's done a lot of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I was browsing through some of the stuff he did. I mean, he did all the Planet of the Apes movies. He's done, he worked on Blade Runner, Halloween 2. The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Nice. Oh, that makes sense.
He's worked on actually on Jaws, and he's been on a lot of major movies.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he was known as a hard ass. They were like, he was like a no nonsense.
Okay.
And like I told you, they had to make a lot of apes. And so
Mhm.
he goes, I had to hire a lot of people, but he goes, I didn't want like these effects guys coming in and, well, I'm going to do my own spin on it. He goes, all the apes had to look the same.
Yeah.
And he goes, so he designed the prosthetic process and the painting process, like he said it, like a color by numbers. So no
Okay.
matter who you were, if you followed the description and the instructions you were given, the ape would look the same.
Right. Right.
And funny enough, though, they said because it took so long to put this makeup on, the
Yeah.
actors and actresses had to eat with the makeup on because they
Right.
couldn't take it off. And he
Yeah,
goes,
too much
was
of a
funny
pain in the
enough
ass.
was the apes, the gorillas would eat together at lunch. The orangutans would sit together, and the chimpanzee. And he goes, it wasn't like it was supposed to be. It just happened.
Yeah.
It was like everybody stuck to their own groups.
That's so
And,
weird.
and then, because it was getting to be like a lot of this is funny. They say this in the documentary.
Uh-huh.
It was so hard to eat with that makeup on. Like food was getting caught.
Uh-huh.
There's a scene, one of the gorillas was on like one of the buggies with the cage on the back.
Yeah.
And he went to say something, and like the jaw like sunk and like fell. And they're like, what the hell's happening with the makeup? He
Yeah.
said when they took the jaw off, there were peas in it. It was like all peas, like to make it into his mouth. And they were like, that's it. Nobody get now from now on, everybody gets shakes at lunch. And
Damn it.
that's what they were making, like shakes for, so people could drink out of straws.
So I could just imagine a guy like taking a spoon trying to stick it into his mouth and just falls into the prosthetic.
Like out of a spoonful
Yeah.
of peas, he probably
He's
got like
"Ah,
one in
damn
his
it."
mouth. That's all right. I'll save them there for later.
Just
But,
grab
you
a
know,
handful and just dump them all in, you know.
and they said it was like 100 degrees, and like a lot of time they were filming in Arizona with that makeup on, and they said that's why all the other movies were filmed in colder months.
Oh yeah. Oh, it would have been horrific.
They said it
Yeah.
was so brutal with the makeup, and just
Yeah.
another funny thing about in the original script, the female apes were all topless, and Fox squashed that. They're like, no.
Okay.
I was like, we want
Yeah.
this to be on TV. You know, eventually going to be.
Yeah.
We can't have big tittied apes running around. So
Yeah. Yeah. That was probably a good idea, you know, and just think of all the, you know, weird like ape kinks that they just stopped from happening, you know, with
big
the
time.
youth of that generation, you know what
Oh
I mean?
yeah,
You know, unrealistic expectations for women, you know what I mean? She's
big
not
time.
hairy enough for my liking.
and you
That's
know
funny.
they made a mess. The composer that did the score, Jerry Goldstein,
Yeah.
he did the score with an ape mask on to better get into the field. So he had a mask made for him. And there's a quick
That's great.
glimpse in the documentary of him there, and he's composing, and he's got this gorilla mask on. It's fucking
Yeah.
hysterical.
That's awesome.
I
Oh,
was like,
that's but yeah, that was really good makeup because the actors were actually acting in it. Like it wasn't inhibiting their dialogue. It was articulate enough that like it could show
yes.
expression. Like their brows would move, you know.
It
I
wasn't
mean,
like you could hear the voice coming out and the mask wasn't moving. You actually saw movement in
right.
the face.
Yeah. I mean,
Great.
if you really looked, I mean, the mouth movements did a little bit of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for the most part, you know, it articulated with the actor, and that was pretty amazing looking, you know, because
Yeah.
you expect it to sound muffled, you know what I mean? And for the most part, it really didn't. You know, you really got you got the expressiveness of the actor's voice, and you didn't get very much muffle or garbling of their speech. So I was pretty that was pretty impressive. Even if you did it now, I would consider it to be impressive.
It was. I think that makeup
Yeah.
holds up to a lot that's done
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. Because I see, you know, movies made now. Now, typically they're lower budget, but I mean, movies made now where like the actors have a mask on and talking through the mask. it's all garbled, it's fucked up, you know what I mean? It's like it's not as good as that. So I mean that was
It-
revolutionary for the
yeah,
time,
and
and it still
John
stands.
Chambers won an Academy Award for that makeup.
How insane is that?
He's
You know
one
what
of
I
the
mean?
first guys to, and actually his assistant, what was it, Tom Berman, who worked with him
Okay.
and for life and everything.
Yeah.
He is the one responsible for actually getting the effects category in the awards
Oh,
before it was acknowledged. I think it
okay.
was 82, I think it was, and I think the first person to win it was American Werewolf in London, Rick Baker.
Yeah, that's a familiar sounding name. So yeah, no, now
No,
that you
it was
mention
Rick
that,
Baker.
yeah, now that you mention that,
I,
Rick Baker's big.
yes,
His
and
name
that's
comes up
why
a lot.
I just drew a total friggin' blank.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
such an easy name too.
he was the first one to win that award in that category that they brought out because
Yeah,
the guy who worked with John Chambers on the Planet of the Apes.
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, yeah, I didn't realize that it wasn't a category before, but I guess they must have just been doing it for like performances and like directors and writers and things like that. And that's cool that this movie caused recognition for makeup artists. That's
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's pretty spectacular.
Well, and I'll tell you, it has the test right there that my 10-year-old nephew, Mikey, watched this with me. Because when I make him watch stuff like that with me, he's like, whatever. He's like, this is garbage. Like he has no interest. And you could see it in his face because I even watched when he watched the beginning. When you saw those apes, his like face, he was like, whoa. He's like, and he heard them talk and like it caught his attention. He watched that whole movie. He didn't like sometimes he'll get bored and I said it's very visual. With the
Yeah,
makeup is good.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's a very visually interesting movie. Um,
definitely.
Even though I didn't see any like super amazing camera work other than when they're doing like wide shots and aerial footage
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I mean, they did really cool stuff with that, whenever they're doing outdoor stuff. Um like I noticed at one scene they did some foreground and background, you know what I mean, where there was depth to it based where people were standing, you know. But like the indoor shots I think were a little less, you
Yeah.
know they were lackluster in my opinion. Like they'd have
Nothing
like
special. Yeah.
yeah, one or two camera angles, you know what I mean, that's all you'd get. Like no real close-ups a lot of the time, unless they wanted to do something like his madhouse line,
Yeah.
or or your damn dirty ape line. I mean, you did get
Yeah.
some close-ups for things like that. So yeah, it was that was competently done. I'd say that they could have been a little bit more interesting with the way they shot it, but no real complaints. I mean, it did everything it needed to do.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, where'd we leave off? They're
Where they
escaping to the Forbidden Zone.
where Lucius helps Taylor escape. They knock Julius out, and of course he wants to bring Nova with them. He's like, no, they didn't. They said not her. He's like, well, I'm taking her.
Yeah, yeah. What are you gonna do? Say no? She's
Yeah.
coming. Yeah. So yeah, they meet up, and he's just not listening to anybody. He's like, I'm getting the hell out of here. Thanks for letting me loose. I really appreciate that. He said, but I don't plan on getting caught again. you
Yeah.
know so like they start taking a trip into the Forbidden Zone. Um and I think the general destination is where his archaeological dig is, like, because they seem to naturally wind up there. So
Mhm.
maybe they went there on purpose. I'm not really sure. I think he wanted to see it. um and of course, you know Dr. Zaius he's no dummy. You know, he
He
knows
knows
that's where
yeah,
they're
he
going.
knows exactly where they're going.
Yeah. So they're not far behind. You know, they have some lame ass firefight. You know, he threatens Dr. Zaius with the rifle. He's like, one person gets hurt, you're the next one going down. You could trust that, you know.
Yeah.
And they have this conversation, you know, and he's like, you know what? I want to help. He said, you guys saved me. I'll try to save you from being executed. If you find anything in that cave that proves, you know, what they're trying to say, you know, you let them off. And he's like, well, of course I would, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and they go into the cave. You have this whole thing about, oh, well, I found this over here, found this over here. This is this old, this is that old. The funny thing is, the stuff that I found here that was 700 years older than that, you know, was more advanced, you know, technology than the stuff I found over here. You know,
They found glasses, eyeglasses, and dentures.
Yeah, and an artificial heart valve. You know,
Involved, yeah.
Yeah. So, and Charlton Heston was like, you know, he said, I don't know if these people were like me. He said, but they had all the same weaknesses, you know, weak hearts, weak eyes, you know, and maybe the one theatrical thing that didn't make a lot of sense was Nova knocked over the baby doll, and it made the mama sound.
Mama sound.
I'm like, how fucking old is that doll? Is there any way in the world that stupid diaphragm in there would even be remotely intact, you know, to make that sound? But sure, they did that. He's like, you know, and he's like, you know, do you know apes that would make a human doll talk? And throws it at him.
And I'll give Zaius credit. He was like a dick to the true end. He goes, what? That doesn't prove nothing.
Exactly.
He just stayed true and true. Like he was like, nope, I'm not buying it.
Couldn't make that guy waver at all, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's like gunfire outside, you know, they run out to find out that their horses are being, you know, chased off, and the kid's in trouble, you know what I mean? But he had actually set off the shots to warn them, and of course they're getting shot at from up above. They're trying to kill Taylor. He manages to cap off one of those apes. And then
not a bad shot with that M1.
Yeah, right. And I was like, I don't know, but I mean, maybe. And
I thought that was cool too. I read that they were all modified M1 Garands.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. You know, I had wondered a little bit about that because I knew that it had to be something semi-functional, you know, because it did have an action on the side, like a semi-automatic. And
they said they made the wood stock cover more of the gun, so it looked more wood than gun.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. And that would make sense because that would have been a popular rifle to be around at the time.
Back then, yes.
Yeah. Because that would have been all leftover World War II, Korea, you know, just like military surplus stuff that you'd be able to get your hands on easily.
Very.
So, and then, yeah, like they do with so many other futuristic movies, they just take something that already exists and they modify it to look like, you know, something more modern or futuristic, you know, like Han Solo's, you know, blaster and, you know, the German Star Wars movies. Exactly. You know, or the weapon that Harrison Ford uses in Blade Runner. You know what I mean? That was something that existed as well.
Very,
yeah. So yeah, that's cool. So he fakes him out. He acts like he's injured and needs help. You know, that's when Dr. Zaius is like, oh, fuck it. Throws the, you know, this is all wrapped up, you know, walks outside, gets a gun in his face. And he's like, gotta kill you. He does a great
acting job of acting like a bad actor. Cause that was just, Sarah, Cornelius, help me. I was like, wow, you sound ridiculous.
I know. But like, but he did that so he could take him hostage, which he didn't have to do that. He could just go right back inside and point the gun at him. You know what I mean? Like, what was the point of the ruse? To get the other people to stop shooting.
Yeah.
Um, but anyhow, he used Dr. Zayas to negotiate to get supplies and a horse so that he and Nova could leave. So he thinks he's leaving the apes in Cornelius and Zira in good shape. Like, well, we proved what we were going to prove. You guys are fine now. He's got Zayas tied up. He's getting ready to leave. He goes and tells Dr. Zira that he wants to kiss her. And and,
But you're
and
so ugly.
she's like, okay, but you're just so damn ugly. And this brings up another question, like just in general. I mean, if you were in a situation like this, Mike, if you had your preference of any animal that you would kiss goodbye, what animal do you think would be the most kissable animal? Like, would you choose an ape or a chimpanzee, or would you go with something else?
I'm trying to run through like every animal, girl/animal.
Well, I had asked my wife that earlier, and she said anteater, because they got those great tongues, and I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. I'm like, you're no help. That's not funny.
I think we had this talk one day in one of the chats.
Yeah, we might have. We may have done
I
that.
think-
Yep. So I don't know. I would probably
But again,
I would
Taylor's
probably,
not even around the bend yet. And Zayas is like, you two will both be tried for heresy. Blow up the
Yeah.
cave. He's like, fuck
yeah,
you.
that's
He's
right.
like,
That's
"Fuck you."
right.
I'm
Yeah. Exactly. He went back on his deal right away. He's like, you can forget it.
like immediately.
Yeah. So, like, immediately the wheels start turning where you're like, okay, well, he's going to send men after them because, there's no way he's letting them go. He's got a head start, and he tells them, hey, be careful how much looking you do. You might not like what you find,
Yeah.
which is him tipping his hand again to let you know that he knows more than what he's saying,
Absolutely.
So
Well, he
he
even
knows.
told he said it to Taylor before he left. He goes, I've known man has been here.
Mhm.
He goes, I've waited for this day a long time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I dreaded it. It was something like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's why I honestly think he doesn't want to kill Taylor, because he's like, you know what? This guy's drove me. He's been busting my balls this whole fucking movie. Let this asshole go and find out what the hell his people did to this planet.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So he knows the truth. Zayas knows the truth, and he's part of the cover up. It's just confirmed at this point. He's, with his ominous phrases and the fact that he's still trying to be part of the cover up. He's going to try them for heresy. He's going to send people after him. But this is basically the end of the movie where they go up, this was actually a pretty artful shot, I thought, where they show the spires like just moving into frame, or the points of the crown. And he hops off of his horse in disbelief, and he's like, I'm home, and then he really gets upset, and that's when he like drops down into the sand. He's like, you maniacs,
blew it up.
You blew it up. He's like, damn you all to hell. So again,
and again,
one more
the reveal has no music at all.
Yeah.
And you look back, some of the best reveals in movie history, when they take the music out, I think it's 10 times like Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Like when you first see the monster come out of there's no music, and they just pan in on him. 10 times scarier.
Mhm.
And the same thing with this. It was like there was no music, no nothing. You're like, what the hell is he looking at? And you get that pullback, and it's like,
Yeah.
holy shit.
Yeah. Immediately recognizable, upper part of the Statue of Liberty. Forget how long it's been, you know what I mean? Eh, like the fact that it still exists is a little suspect, but like it drives its point home. It's very poignant. It's very, you know, um, upsetting. As soon as that realization hits you, you're like, he's on Earth, that's what he's talking about. And he's upset because his own people are what caused this. So,
Hmm.
so humans destroyed themselves and the apes evolved to take over. Um, and it's a really cool little movie. Um, I can understand why it was as popular as it was. Um, I I don't know. Closing thoughts on the movie. I mean, you wanna rate the movie
Oh,
somehow?
this is high on me only because this has the childhood factor, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It has like two impacts for me because you have just forget about the story, the impact it had on me as a kid. It was just like I said, gorillas running around on horses shooting guns and like that alone. Now you watch it as an adult and you see all the story, like I said, the politics and the religion and like all the stuff going on that you never knew as a kid was going on. So this is high for me. Like I said, this is a
Yeah.
childhood favorite of mine. I love the whole franchise.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully we'll get to talk about the other ones too. I mean,
And
I'd like to explore this a little further.
yeah,
Um,
no, if we do them one at a time, it would be. There were so many versions of this movie when they were making it. Like I said, you
yeah.
had the different endings. You had, I mean, we didn't even mention that Rod Serling was the original writer for this from the Twilight
Oh,
Zone,
right, right. He had done
and
something like 30 drafts for this movie.
he was getting. They, I guess, they felt like he was getting too far fetched and making it more like a Twilight Zone movie, which it kind of
Yeah,
is. The kind of irony,
yeah,
but then they brought in Michael Wilson to.
yeah,
So I mean, I'm not 100% sure what was actually kept from Rod Serling.
yeah.
You know, even but like I said, the book, the apes, it wasn't primitive. It was very advanced. It was like the
Right,
apes living in society now,
right.
and the people were like apes. And they were originally going to go with that line, and then they were like, you know what? If we make it primitive, you know, it'll cost a lot less. Than making apes into being in a city, scene, and as opposed to just being we could go to the desert. And so I mean we could have gotten a lot of different versions of this.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm happy with the outcome. Like I said, it's been a favorite of mine for years.
yeah. Well, I dug up a review checklist for myself, and I went through it. I have several different categories. I'm not going to go through them here while we're talking, but I think I might post them later so that
Okay.
people could see the criteria that I use. Like whenever this episode comes out, I'll probably put this out with it so
Yeah.
that people can see it. And you know, uh, not that anyone's going to care, but I wanted to get a little bit more scientific about how I rated the movie.
Okay.
So um, I um, I did manage to give this a score of 22 out of my 30 criteria points. I did give it an extra 2 points because I thought it was a thought-provoking movie. So I gave it a wild card factor.
That's fair.
So 24 out of 30, so it's basically 80%. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. So
That's
I think this is an awesome movie for being made in 1968. I can't believe they didn't do more with it. If I'm being honest, I have a feeling that if this movie had been made, 10 years later, 20 years later, that it would still be super prevalent today and we'd have crossover films. You know what I
oh,
mean?
without a doubt.
Because somebody would own this franchise and a studio would buy it up with something else that they own. And next thing you know, we'd be getting, Star Wars mixed with Planet of the Apes. you know, maybe Planet of the Apes meets Aliens. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like there could be so many cool things that they could do with this, and I'm actually kind of sorry that it didn't happen. You know what I mean? But I mean, there's still hope for it. Somebody might be able to
oh,
buy the rights to Planet of the Apes again, and the right studio get a hold of it and maybe do something like that. But yeah,
oh, there's a
yeah,
new one coming out too.
yeah.
Yeah, another one with this, with the new series.
Uh-huh.
There's another one coming out.
Oh, they're gonna have like Mark Wahlberg or something in it, or bring
Well,
back James Franco.
he was in the one remake,
Okay,
which I actually liked.
okay.
And then I liked the other ones too, but then they started a whole different series. The ones
Mhm.
with James Franco in the first one.
Yeah, yeah. I do have to go back and watch those. Yeah. Well, maybe we can talk about them too. Um,
You never have to push me on Planet of the Apes. Even the new ones, I enjoy them.
That's cool. Yeah. So do you want to give this a rating out of 10? Is this a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10? What are you thinking here?
Just to not give it a 10, I'll go 9 out of 10 because like there's a
Alright.
lot of emotion and it invokes a lot for me. Brings me back
Yeah.
to a happier time,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
like I said, I could watch. It's one of the few movies. It's like Jaws. I watched it last Saturday. I watched it again, and I didn't get tired. I could throw it on now and sit there and enjoy this movie, knowing I just watched it twice this week.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just one of those comfort movies for me, and so I'll go 9 out of 10.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yep. No, I understand the nostalgia. And if you made it this far and you haven't seen this movie, shame on you. Go check it out. You know what I mean?
Shame
And
on you.
we just spoiled the shit out of it for you, so there's no surprises left. But watch it anyway.
Sorry, we spoiled a movie that came out in 1968. But
Yeah, I know. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So yeah, thank you for joining us for the inaugural episode of the Scream Until You Like It podcast. You know, I'm Clint. I think I'm gonna leave with my favorite line from this movie, you know, but I know you're in favor of Roy Scheider's line from Jaws, so I'll let you say that. I'm gonna say, "Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape."
and remember to
Smile, you son of a...